Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fire and Forte and the Tech Week special, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, and I hope that you are as well. Today, I want to introduce to you Jeannie-Marie Noyce, of which I've not actually double-checked with you how I should say your surname.
You got it right. Well done.
Excellent, brilliant. What a good start. Welcome to Fire and Forte. How are you doing today?
Fabulous. I've had a very good day.
That's great. And that is pretty good going, because we are talking on a Monday at the end of the day. So thank you. You're still firing on all cylinders until the end. Now, I came across your product when I was looking through lots of products and services. I like to keep an eye on digital activity and what's going on out there. And when I found Brenna, it really struck a chord. And not long afterwards, I reached out to you to sort of say how excited I was by it and also some of that reason why. And I think to so many people listening, they will be in a really similar situation, whether that's personal or whether it's something that might be on the cards later down the line. And that is around the aging population. So I will let you explain Brenna and the product and the service it provides to families and everyone involved in the care of an older person in an aged care home. But I wanted to share the stat, which makes me just realize how much your product can really change the world. And that is the World Health Organization stat that the number of people aged over 80 years old is expected to triple between 2020 to 2050. And that's a total of 426 million people. You will be so close to that data, Jeannie. And when I read that, I think of the implications on families, on loved ones, on what we need to be planning for now, and on the industry of carers. So with that in mind, can we kick off by you introducing your product and service, as well as yourself, of course?
Absolutely. So Brenna is a communication tool specifically designed for residential aged care. So what it allows is, ordinarily in an aged care setting, a registered nurse would make a phone call to one family member to provide them with an update on the condition of the resident. So that might be in the instance of there's been a fall, the GP has come, there's a change to condition of some kind, there's an appointment that's been made, there's some sort of behavioural change or so forth. So Brenna allows those updates to be provided in a digital format through a secure mobile application, and it allows all family members who are authorised to receive the same information at the same time. So that one source of truth from the aged care home to the families. So the beauty of it is that it really allows the nurses in a really efficient fashion to provide really clear, timely and consistent information to the family members of the residents, so that they're really able to have a really clear understanding of what's going on. Really helps to improve the trust between those two parties, between the staff and the family members, because that real transparency and understanding of what's happening with your loved one in care really helps to improve that bond and that relationship and the trustability of that care. So where it came from, which is a nice little segue, you're probably going to ask me that. My mother, Robyn, was in care for 4.5 years. She went into care quite early. She was only 68 when she went into an aged care home after having very advanced stages of Parkinson's disease. And the journey to then creating the product Brenna came from the challenges that myself and my siblings experienced with getting clear communication and a clear understanding of what was happening in relation to my mum. So even at a care home with exceptionally good care, and I will always be grateful to them for the wonderful care they provided to my mum, providing that communication in a clear, timely and consistent fashion is a real challenge. It's a huge amount of time that it takes out of the workday of an RN who is already so incredibly busy. And so part of the real value proposition of the Brenna tool is that it frees up that time of the nurse to be able to spend it back with the resident on primary care, which is really what everyone wants.
And as is often the case with products and founders, it's come from a first-hand experience. So I assume that you were waiting on phone calls, were you? Or is that how you were communicating, or was it emails?
So phone calls predominantly. The interesting thing is I wasn't the primary contact. So in an aged care setting, for efficiency and compliance purposes, aged care homes allocate one person as being the primary contact within a family unit. And that was my sister. So I wasn't the primary contact. So for the most part, I wasn't even receiving those phone calls. And it then leaves families with trying to disseminate that information somehow in a clear fashion, which often leads to Chinese whispers or things not being clearly communicated, friction between family members and so forth. So one of the things that we believe we are achieving with the use of Brenna is to reduce that friction between family members, to increase that harmony and to soften the journey that's already a very difficult journey with having a loved one in care.
I mean, I am the eldest of four, and my dad is the second eldest of four. And I can see with my grandparents that it really relates what you're talking about, what I'm seeing my father go through, and then thinking, actually, how on earth, sometimes when we're trying to coordinate, a birthday present for one of our parents, it's a nightmare. So I can I can really appreciate the frustration of wanting to hear the news, and yet also the pressure of them being the primary point of contact in charge of time, sending that message, that update out to family members. Yeah.
What do I communicate? When do I communicate it? This phone call, oh, it didn't seem so important. Do I need to let my siblings know? In my situation, that was compounded by my brother being in London, so different time zones, different geographies, etc. And that's quite a common scenario. So being able to all receive the exact same message at the exact same time and just have that single source of truth really helps a great deal.
I am hoping to actually see what this looks like, because it seems amazing. Like, why doesn't this already exist? I hope it rolls out really quickly. But to go back, as we were saying earlier, it's probably something that could grow incredibly quickly. Now, as we're in Tech Week, and what was so interesting about your background is that actually you're a corporate lawyer by is that correct?
Yeah.
That was what your training and the first 10 15 years of your career. Can you just talk us through how you went from one career and then made quite the significant jump into being a tech startup founder?
Absolutely. And I'm going to preface it with this. If you had asked me 3 years ago if I would be the founder of a tech business, particularly a tech business in aged care, I would have thought you were crazy. So it's interesting how a journey can progress to get you to a certain place. So I started my career as a corporate lawyer. I worked for one of the biggest firms in Australia, did that for quite a number of years. And then I went and worked as an investment banker for a while. And then I moved to Hong Kong and was working with Moody's, which is a credit rating agency, doing a very technical role and presenting at conferences and industry briefings and so forth. And then my family scenario brought me home. So my father got very sick and was gravely ill in hospital, and he used to take care of my mum. So that meant that we had quite the situation on our hands in terms of our family, and that was my priority. So I made the choice to move home. I really put my career, not just a backseat, but totally to one side for a while I focused on helping my family. And I'd also retrained as a Pilates instructor while I lived in Hong Kong, so I taught a bit of Pilates too. And then after my father passed, my mum made the choice that she didn't want to be at home on her own, and the care services we had for her really weren't significant enough for her needs at that point. So she transitioned into care then. We found a wonderful care home for her. And then during that process, I started to do some consulting work and so forth. During COVID, when COVID hit, my consulting role finished. And then I started doing another tech-related business that was online cooking experiences. And that led me to an entrepreneurial program. And someone in that program asked me, if there was one industry that you could improve, what would it be? And my purely instinctive response was aged care. And that's just really come from that lived experience of seeing my mum my family experience with my siblings, and also witnessing for so many years the experience of the staff and seeing what their day was like. And so it was from that then, say, just the insight came to me for the product, and I could really see it, not just see like the, I guess, solution in inverted commas, but I could actually see the screens. I could see that, I could draw them. I could see the screens and the way that they would work and the way that the structure of the app on the nursing home side would work to be able to really help staff, like a recipe, be able to complete information so that it was quick and easy for them and also met compliance requirements and also was digestible and accessible for family members. So I then started the process of validating the idea across the industry, talking to everyone from student nurses up through to CEOs, consultants, and everyone in between. So, and I did a program called Tech Ready Women, which was an amazing program that is for female founders who have either an idea or a very early stage business that has a tech focus, but they don't have a tech background themselves. And that program is really what then kick-started the process of Brenna truly gaining its form. And through that, I did a validation interview with the CEO of my mother's nursing home, who manages a group of 7 homes. And after that validation interview, I asked if she would be happy to talk about the actual detail of the product that I was intending to develop. And she loved it so much that even from that very first discussion, she was keen for us to work together to build the product.
So there you had your first customer then.
Yes.
Wow. What an impressive story. And even though it's happened very quickly, you're able to relay this story as if it was quite natural. But actually, each of those stages, it would have been quite scary, wouldn't it, to think, all right, there's one thing seeing a problem, but there's another thing actually jumping in and doing something about it, and then knowing how to do something about it. I mean, luckily, the gods do give you some incredible dreams, which I wish I had. Dreams like that. But the way that when you look back on it, it seems quite a seamless story. But I'm wondering, at that first point, when you started scribbling down ideas, were you talking to registered nurses when you were actually in the care homes to think, all right, you've got your experience as a family member, but you're also considerate of the person inputting the information? How did you find out what it was like for them and what you needed to do for them?
So I did a series of interviews across the industry: student nurses, registered nurses, clinical leaders, facility managers, directors of nursing, care managers, CEOs, industry consultants, quality and compliance professionals, and as well as family members across various parts of Australia of different ages, different socioeconomic groups, whether they be primary contact or not primary contact, with someone currently in care, someone previously in care. So I really did a range, both from the staff side, but also from the family side, did a significant range of interviews and discussions in order to, get from other people. I mean, I was going to use the expression to get from the horse's mouth, but to hear from others that this wasn't just an experience that I was having or that my family was having, that it was really something where I was going through a process of validating this is an industry-wide issue that needs an appropriate solution.
That qualitative research is essential, isn't it? I'm sure from a registered nurse point of view, I wonder if anyone had asked them that before. I mean, I was visiting someone that I volunteered for during COVID, and I couldn't get someone to answer the door for ages when I was trying to get her a greeting card. And my heart went out to the nurses, really, because I thought, where are they all? There was hardly anyone in this care home. So did they feel was it really helpful for them to be listened to, do you think? I mean, not saying that there is nobody out there listening to them, but could you...
I hope so. I certainly have experienced a great deal of gratitude from the staff that are using the product already. I mean, they give great feedback. They tell us how much they love it. But there's also a real sense of gratitude because it literally makes their day easier. Mm-hmm. I have received in email, in conversations, to saying, thank you, you make our day easy. Not even thank you, you make communication easy. It's thank you, you make our day easy. which is so beautiful. Like, there are times I've received emails, and my team has received emails, and I'm almost in tears because it's so beautiful to see the gratitude both from staff and from family members about just how much easier this is making it for them, how much improved the clarity of information is and the quality of information. So it's really nice. In terms of registered nurses, they were probably the most difficult for me to get conversations with. I think it's easier to get a conversation with a CEO than it is with an RN because they're so busy. But the fortunate thing was the way I was able to get access to work with so many of the registered nurses and clinical leaders is a registered nurse who generally manages the team of the other registered nurses, was that I worked over a period of 12 months with the clinical governance team from the Tullidge Family Community Homes. So that just that team in itself is a group of 25 people. And then there's all of the RNs from each of the 7 care homes. So that was really wonderful. The amount of time commitment and energy and effort and dedication that they put into building this product to me was also I was very happy to give them my time because I was so grateful for the time that they gave me. And it really, to me, is the reason that this product works as well as it does is because it was developed by the people that will use it on a daily basis.
What a fantastic insight. You're purpose driven, but then also normally what you find is when you spot this kind of problem and you've got this passion and this purpose, it's because it's going to benefit other people. So of course they're going to say, we follow you, Jeannie-Marie, we want to make this happen. So I'm glad that really helped and enabled you, because if we go back to that time, you were and are a female founder doing this on your own. So I'm wondering, going from the structure, I know you had to spell consulting, but you went from a very structured role working for big organizations where you know how to operate and what the way of working is. Was it a shock moving into this silo way of working? And was it quite daunting as well?
So I think every single founder of a tech startup will tell you that it's daunting. It continues to be daunting on a daily basis. It's part of the journey. Part of the journey is it's that you need to learn how to do new things, adapt to new things. But I don't feel like I've been doing this on my own. I do happen to be a solo female founder, but the whole journey through, I feel I've been incredibly supported with the co-design partners and all of their clinical governance team and wider teams, with my development team who are incredible, with a plethora of mentors. There are people that also have worked with me on a consulting basis and part-time. I've worked with some incredible RNs outside of that co-design team to make sure that we were producing a product that was applicable to the industry as a whole, as opposed to one particular group of homes' way of approaching care. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting that check and balance to make sure it was really suitable. So the amount of help and support makes me feel that this has been a team effort. I wouldn't ever say that, I've done this on my own. But still, you are very right about the structures. You do not have those same structures that you have in larger organizations and very well-funded larger organizations like law firms and banks and consulting firms. So,
well, you probably just helped lead me on to my next question, actually, because, by the way, that's really helpful, because I think so many people, if they have an idea for a startup, one thing that gets in the way is, but I have got my friends and my colleagues and I know how to work. The thought of being on our own could be quite daunting. So it's super interesting to hear that actually you had such a supportive group around you. And I will come back to ask you more about Tech Ready, the Ready group, women, because that sounds really cool. But you mentioned funding earlier, and I want to touch on that, because it's really good that it's in the press, but it's some negative news around the funding that females get. And my last guest, actually, which will be coming out after this episode, is really focused on increasing the funding for female founders. So how have you been able to fund this, and what's your experience been of funding?
Well, so interesting question. I haven't raised capital as yet. So I haven't actually been seeking investment and capital raising in the business externally. So the company has been able to fund itself out of revenue and other investments rather than external investments so far. So that has, in some respects, made the journey easier. It is definitely a huge challenge for, I'd say, for founders generally at the moment, but female founders do have a harder journey with funding. Particularly, unfortunately, when it comes to venture capital funding, the numbers are even lower.
So actually, the fact that you've been funding it as a business, that's a model in itself, though, isn't it? Because to your point, you actually don't have more stakeholders. You're able to be independent. So where was that a conscious decision then to, okay.
Yes. And the way you've asked that question is quite astute. So for me, I wanted to ensure that this product really was built from lived experience, both from the family side and also from the staff side. So I didn't want that journey to be driven by an investment timeline or investors' timelines, and I wanted the product to really be able to be built in an appropriate timeline. As it turned out, it was actually from start to finish was incredibly quick. We had a product in market incredibly quickly. So, but that was also part of it too. If I had spent 6 to 12 months capital raising, then I wouldn't have had a built product in the time frame that I did. So what I was really important to me was making sure I had a customer prepared to pay for the product before I built it. That was the real validation for me. And I was only proceeded with the build of the product once we had signed software license agreements for the initial users of the product before we press go on the build. So thereby enabling the business initially to be partially funded out of revenue, as well as some grant money and some other investment.
It's a great example for quite a few reasons, isn't it? Because a lot of the time the idea can get carried away, but there isn't actually the demand for it, or maybe there's the demand for it, but the costs don't work. Whereas you were able to validate and secure that in order to build the product. So to some extent, it was a win-win for you.
Very much so. And given, to your point about career transition, the opportunity cost for me personally at this stage of my career to be undertaking this kind of venture is really significant because of the other things that I could be doing with my time and the remuneration I would be receiving. So in order for me to feel comfortable that this really was a product that the market not only needs, but is willing to pay for, I needed to have that proof, signed legal contract before we built.
And I think for many women in their 40s, which is who I'm talking to predominantly, that is the biggest leap of faith because you're paying for a mortgage, you've got overheads. And so to actually start again feels, for want of a better word, a luxury, because actually you just think I can't. But actually, to your point, there's another way of looking at it, which is what's the minimum that I need? How can I approach this to make it feasible and make it possible to leave my current career? It doesn't have to go from 1 to 0 necessarily.
Yes, and I think it's a really, really important consideration because everything in a startup process generally takes longer than you anticipate. You know, those first customers, then building more customers, then more revenue. And often things also cost more than you anticipate too, even with all the best planning in the world. So it's really important to embark on something like this. And when you're really committed to a product and to an outcome and to a mission, to make sure that you personally have your ducks in a row in terms of being able to structure your own life, your own finances, and enabling you to be able to really lead and grow a business.
I can't help but think this approach is maybe linked to your law background as well. It's very organised and diligent. Maybe. But maybe it's just personality and it's just very wise words, isn't it? Brilliant. And how amazing. You don't often hear people say, I got a product into market quicker than I thought. You normally hear, oh God, there are all these delays. So well done. You mentioned Tech Ready Women. I'd love to know that program because there's going to be people listening to this in Australia, but also in other countries, hopefully. And it'd be really interesting to find out what kind of networks and support is out there. So what was your experience?
It's the most phenomenal program. I literally shout its praises from the rooftops. It's a combination of content as well as online sessions, mentoring and coaching. And the beautiful thing about this program, it's run by women who have tech entrepreneurial experience, and their sole purpose of running it is in order to give those lessons over to other women and to help encourage and support women through the process. There is no investment, there is no equity component or anything like that. So there are no other motives other than to help women to progress in the tech world, which could also include going through the program and determining that your idea doesn't have legs. That's just as important as it is to go through and be able to go next step, next step, next step. Yes, I really do have a business model and a product and an audience, and I can really build something viable here. So I found it to be the most incredibly supportive group of women, both in terms of the people that run it and the mentors and the other women that I have met through the program, whom I still keep up to date with now. We're quite good supporters of one another. So I'd love to see this and things similar to it run in all different parts of the world, because it really is there's women often talk about women needing confidence, or people talk about women needing more confidence in business. And I don't actually think that that's what women need. I actually think we are confident. What we need is encouragement and support and cheerleaders and people to say, I'm rooting for you. I've got your back. Keep going.
Brilliant. I think that's very wise words. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time you've got a brilliant product, but what about on a bad day? Everybody has a bad day and moments of doubt. And I'm imagining in a startup, even more so, you'll probably have days of just things going wrong and thinking, actually, I don't feel strong enough to carry this on my own. That's the support that kind of group can give you, I imagine.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly when I call the other founders and friends from that program, because they really just get it. So as long as we're not both having that same kind of day at the same time, then it works really well.
That's a good point. You should have maybe a service like Brenna where it's a red, amber or green. Can I ring you? Good day or not? Red. Yes. No, not today. Yeah. That's brilliant. And how long is the Tech Ready Women program? Is it a week or longer?
So it goes for a period of 8 to 10 weeks. And so I was fortunate that we weren't in lockdown when we did it. So we did have a couple of in-person events, but then the structure of the program is online. There is actually also an ongoing program which is a networking group. It's a female founders group, which is born out of the Tech Ready program, which I'm also part of. And that's also a great group. So really, again, really supportive, a great network to be able to jump in and say, has someone had this sort of agreement before? Or, where did you go to for your tech insurance? Or I'm needing to look at this kind of hiring this kind of person, where did you go to for that? Like all sorts of different things that people are jumping in and asking. And then you've got a whole network of people who are coming in with responses so that you're not inventing the wheel each time.
That is absolutely fabulous. And I'm sure there are lots of networks wherever anyone resides that listens to this that are doing a similar thing, because I'm imagining some of their funding might come from the government. Do you think?
It is. So yes. So Tech Ready Women is partly funded by the New South Wales government. So in conjunction with the Sydney Startup Hub, and they really run a wonderful service.
Amazing. So wherever you are, that is something to look into, to whether it's that program or another one, because I think governments, again, in so many different countries now are backing that. And the benefit, like you said, no wonder you haven't felt too on your own, because you've got these supporters that are not just cheerleaders, they're also providing all of this practical support for one another. So you've actually got an extended team, really, haven't you, by the sounds of it?
And it's, yes, in some ways, yes. It's also really important to find your own mentors, which comes as a bit of a natural process. They might have been former colleagues or friends or people that really believe in the mission, but finding those people that you can call when something good happens or when something bad happens, and people that you can really be real with. And there might be days when you're calling and saying, this is really hard, or this has happened, I just need to talk through it with somebody. And having that ability to do that is what really helps with the continuing, keep going, stay committed. And I'm so incredibly committed to this that when I do call those mentors, they also know, like, it's almost like we are a team and we work together to help, get through what's happening in that particular instance.
And out of interest, your mentors, are they from your previous career, or are they from your new world, or a bit of a mix?
It's a bit of a mix, and it's really interesting and surprising, the people from my own network that have come forward to assist and to help and so forth. And when I was first embarking on going into a field that was so incredibly different, I spoke to one of my friends and I said, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to be able to navigate this, because my network is all people from law and banking and professional services." And I said, "So I don't have that existing network of people in the aged care space." Now, naturally, in the last 2 years, that's significantly changed, but at the time I didn't. And she said to me, "Yeah, but your network is gold because you can network your network." And it was really good advice to network your network, because when people see that you're doing something where there's really great impact, where it comes from that lived experience and passion, where it's really empathetic and people are really seriously going to benefit, there's a lot of support that comes. Also, that when people have had the lived experience of having a loved one in care and been through the challenges associated with that, that's where some of my, sort of supporters, mentors, etc., have come from, because they really, from personal experience, see the value of the product and want to see it succeed, so it will help others.
Yeah, amazing. I think when something good can come out of something challenging, everyone wants to help make that happen, don't they? And like you say, I mean, the feedback as well, we'll come to that near the end, actually, about the feedback that you're getting from it, because I'd love to know about that. But how amazing it would be to remove a problem that people are facing so frequently. That's why people must be so supportive of you. One of the many reasons.
I feel so, and the feedback we've received has been phenomenal on both sides, and that people are making the effort to provide that feedback. No one has to, but we very regularly receive emails from family members saying, "Thank you so much for the app," and I'm even from people saying, "I'm in my 80s and I was hesitant at first, but this is so convenient. It's so great to use. It's really wonderful having all the information in one place." And by far and away, the most popular thing with family members is the traffic light priority system of green for low priority, orange for medium priority, and red for high priority, because it really gives family members back agency. As soon as they see the notification, before they've even gone in and read the full update, they know how serious an issue is. Instead of seeing that number come up on the telephone and going into that stress and panic, "Oh my God, what has happened?"
That's so fantastic, isn't it? And then what happens? I mean, I'm terrible for listening to voicemails, and you think if you had a voicemail waiting for you, or if you'd missed one, and then probably the constant concern that you might miss a call might be another part of that. So is it an app that then flags a notification?
Yes. So when there's a new, what we call an update, so information that has come in relation to a resident in care, there's both an app notification and also an email notification that comes through to let you know that there is a new update in the app for you to read. And it gives you the headline information. So it might say respiratory infection, low priority, when it happened, and then click to read the update. So all that you get is that headline information, but with the color coding and the priority, people already get that sense of like, "Oh, okay, do I need to panic? Do I not need to panic?" Of just how serious it is and how quickly do I need to respond to this. So that's the part where it gives people back agency. So that they are looking, and I've had people say, "Oh, I see that it's green and I finish my cup of tea and I look at it afterwards." So like, that's just beautiful, because it's letting people's nervous system relax. And when you've had a family journey of someone going through whatever health, mobility, and other issues have led to them being in care, that's generally been a long journey. It hasn't started from the point of someone being in aged care. And so family members are often through that long journey. They're tired, they're stressed, there's a plethora of other emotions going on, frustration, guilt, anger, etc. So when emotions and experiences are already running high, to really help to calm things down, to give people peace of mind, to alleviate their anxiety is really valuable to be able to help people with.
And people have got to live their day-to-day lives. I mean, whenever anything's going on in your personal life, you sometimes just think, well, people have got to operate, you've still got to take the children to school, or you've still got to work. But actually, something can be so distracting and worrying, can't it? So a service like that is just invaluable. So to go back to your journey, actually, to actually enabling this product, I'm wondering what technical skills you needed and how you went about acquiring them when you started on the journey.
Very good question. So I don't have a tech background. I'm not a software engineer. I couldn't code to save my life. So I really needed to have a good team. And my journey for that was that I'd done a 3-month entrepreneurial program called Antler. And during that program, I met the CEO of a development company that I now use. And we had been talking about Brenna and about the feature set for Brenna for a full 12 months before we actually press go on the build of the product. And so through that period, I felt that I had a really trusted advisor there and someone that was with me along that journey. So it made the transition into working with his development team much easier. Having said that, there were through the development process and still now are times when I need to have more discussions, I need to consult external resources and so forth to be able to be sure that what we're doing is appropriate, because I personally don't have that skill. So I need to have that come from technical consultants and from the team that are working on the product. We have a reasonable sized team that's working on the Brenna product and continues to work on the product. I've also been really impressed and really grateful for the involvement of Amazon Web Services and their solutions architects that we've worked with. So we've worked with a number of their solutions architects over the last 4 or 5 months. And currently Brenna is in an Amazon Web Services healthcare accelerator program, which is absolutely phenomenal. So the help and support and guidance technically through that has been amazing and continues to be amazing. So that I really feel confident now in saying, even though it didn't come from my skill, that we have a really robust product, that the security of that product is robust, that the foundation really is there. And I also have had to just simply read things and learn. So I've certainly learned a lot from the process of developing with the team. I did really diligently complete all of the content in the Tech Ready Women program and do further reading around that. And with my network in the various entrepreneurial programs I've done and various networking groups and things I'm part of, I will always go and ask people questions. So if I have some questions around certain structures within the mobile app, then I will go and talk to my friends that I know are mobile app developers and have more experience in that field and ask for their input.
So there's having advisors and a network, and then there's reading with extra detail and care and attention and focus on any kind of materials that you get. And then you mentioned about the structures of things as well, then going back to check structures of how those things work. Because I was also just wondering around communicating your vision to a software developer, because actually that is often, it's in our minds, isn't it? Or we can draw it, but there might be, the language could be very different between your previous role to who you were talking to. So how did you go about that?
That's very true. And the language is very different. So I feel in some senses I had a nice kind of almost try before I buy, which is part of the process of developing software, in that Nibelcraft developed prototypes. So we had wireframes and designs and the structure of how the product would work many months before we press go on the build. And those wireframes, when they were developed, it was so easily and clearly developed from me drawing the screens. So as I said, I had a real vision for the structure of how it would work. And I drew screens and they developed the prototypes. And the work together and that collaboration was just so seamless and so beautifully done that it really helped me to see that they could see the vision for the product and that they'd be able to execute that. So I've really, as a non-technical founder, needed to trust my team and their skill. And as I said, I'd had many, many, many conversations with them before we actually press go on the build. The other thing is that in terms of the build, what helped from a technical perspective was the guidance that we were providing them with was really detailed and significant because we'd done so much work through the co-design process. So we had such a detailed structure for the product, for the precise language within the product, for the various processes and steps and so forth. So that really helped them to be given really clear guidance as to what was to be included in the product.
Detail is everything's in the detail, isn't it? And then you talk about a prototype. Did you have a predefined number of prototypes or testing phases that you would have? Because I suppose you might have one vision and it might have looked great, but then these things can fall down, I imagine, over the location of one button or something. So how many prototypes did you go through? Roughly. You don't need to remember everyone.
Well, in terms of number, because you are constantly iterating. Okay. So the development process over a period of a few months, it isn't like creating a physical product where you have one and you send it back and you get another version and you send it back and you get another version. The best description that's been given to me is software is like a garden. You will always have to tend to it. So it may be that you landscape in a certain way and you plant certain plants, but you are always going to have to continue to tend to them, continue to water them, nurture them, maybe take them out, relocate them, put in other plants, put in seasonal plants, etc., etc. So it isn't quite like that. There isn't sort of a process of here's a full prototype and then let's work on it. It is constant iterations through stages of development.
That makes a lot of sense, because also when you think about the end user, and for any of us that might notice an app change, it's done so gradually, because you would just turn people off, wouldn't you, if suddenly you went on to maybe to do your online grocery shop and everything had moved around. So also yes, very much so. So what's important there is to ensure that the structure of the product is set, and so that you're not doing vast changes to the structure of the product. Because even in your online shopping, I'm quite sure that things there do actually change very regularly, but you don't notice them because the way you add things to cart and continue your shop and what have you, that fundamental structure is most likely going to be the same over time. We have done lots and lots of enhancements to the product from the time we launched it until now, and mostly on the staff side. So mostly in terms of on the way that the staff use the product, enhancing their ability to be able to provide different forms of updates and different kinds of information, and just making that process faster, more seamless, even more easy to use, which has been a great process and a great learning. And because we've worked with those homes so closely, that feedback loop has enabled us to be able to develop things faster and faster. Excellent. The user is king, and your users are the registered nurses and vice versa, the family. So that feedback loop is giving you're not probably putting something out in market going, oh, I wonder how this new feature will work, because actually it's already probably been proposed to you and validated by X many number of people. So that's a really great example actually of how to avert risk and also land a product that's really enjoyed.
Co-design is really important, and particularly in the health space and aged care specifically, because tech can really be such an enhancement to care. It can modernize care, it can save a lot of time, it can really help with understanding and so forth. But if you just chuck in a product and you think it's going to work and you haven't had the users test it, you haven't had their input, etc., then that can actually be detrimental. And then you have products that aren't appropriately used. It also gives a bit of a bad name to tech in the industry and so forth. So the better that co-design process can be, the better the outcomes are going to be for everybody. And Our aim is that those outcomes are improved for the nurses, the family members, and also the residents. Because if you save nurses time and make their day less stressful, and you give family members peace of mind and clear information, the resident wins from both sides, because everyone is calmer, happier, has more time and love and care to give to the resident. So they really will have better health outcomes. So it's just so important to be doing that whole process as a continuous improvement and co-design.
Excellent. I'm just so excited for the future of Brenna, to be honest, but I will stick to my script and make sure that I do ask you my next question, which is around transferable skills. So you'd obviously acquired in the region of 15 plus years in your previous career. What transferable skills do you find are useful and were useful for you right at the very beginning, do you think?
Huge attention to detail. So really important. The analytical skills. So really being able to look at a problem, pick it apart, see who the various stakeholders are within that problem, and then be able to distill what might be complex concepts into something really clear and simple and easy to articulate. So I think whilst it might not be people's view, that should really be the key skill of a good lawyer, is to take complex concepts and distill them into something that's clear and easy to understand. So that's really important. Being able to cope with a high workload and to be able to do a lot. So just that, being able to juggle, being resilient. I would say that actually my life experience personally has guided me as much, if not more, as my life experience professionally has, because I've had some real curveballs. I've had 3 family members pass away in a period of 8 years. You know, it's a lot to manage. And through those journeys, seeing my parents' deteriorating health and unfortunately really dying in slow motion has meant that I've needed to become more robust, to deal with and process a lot of emotions. I am an emotional person and I'm a deeply empathetic person, and that is as, if not more valuable than any of my professional skill to this business and to this product, because it is built on instinct and it is built on empathy.
I suppose based on that, it'd be easy not to have a break. And with everything that you've needed to take on personally, but also the scale of what you've done, how have you been able to take breaks? Is that, both as a tech startup founder, is that quite difficult to actually press pause?
Yes. Short answer, yes. It is difficult, particularly through the first couple of years of a business when you're leading yourself, you're leading a team, you're leading the vision of the product. It's also that really is quite energizing, you know, that those things can really help to give you purpose, to energize you, but there needs to be some boundaries. And at times it's that I need to put those on myself, I need to put those on others, and taking time, whether that is just simply making sure I go to my dance classes, that I am doing enough exercise, that I'm getting enough sleep, you know, some of just the foundational things during the course of a day, a week, a month are just as important as taking longer breaks. Look, taking longer holidays has not been something that's really happened significantly over the course of the last sort of 18 months to 2 years. But I do still take some time, and it's really valuable to have a team you can rely on during those times. So things like, I absolutely couldn't help but have to take some time out when my mum passed away. And my tech team was such an incredible support. They absolutely, you know, held things, and everything was completely fine, you know, during that period. So even when you have a relatively small team, being able to rely on the team and to just trust them so that you can step away is really important. It's also, as things grow, you go through different inflection points. So the development process, I was insanely busy and worked incredibly hard. But then as things, you know, as the product went into market and as the product then became more and more robust, then we know and trust this product simply works. I don't need to do anything to make it work. It is a software product that works. We keep being told how incredibly well it works by the staff and by the families, which is great. Then as the business grows and as I bring on a bigger team, that's also going to enable me to delegate more things and to have people take responsibility for certain areas of the business so that I then can step out at times and also perform different roles. I'm increasingly needing to go to events and to go to conferences and to be more front-facing in terms of demonstrations to clients and so forth. And so to enable me to do that, as well as the stepping away, it's really fostering and building the team and the right team members.
I think you built such a solid foundation at the beginning from the very start with the amount of research that you did. And to your point around the importance of co-design, which gave you that security as well, that without those foundations, this could be a very different conversation. But it's actually been a very, is steady the right word? It certainly sounds as some form of...
Well, the thing is, I actually have the Steve Jobs quote about joining the dots framed in my apartment. And it's that's very easy to see looking backwards. But the thing with looking forwards of this journey is you don't know at any point in time what's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months, or who your next customer is going to be, or where inquiries are going to come from, or who your next team members are going to be and where they're going to come from. But it's trusting and keeping going, that with the next steps and the next steps and the next steps and planting more and more and more seeds, that then starts to germinate, that the momentum starts to build. And I'm really feeling that at the moment. The momentum is really increasing. The awareness of the product is really improving. And the ease of getting meetings and demos is also improving. So, that's not a linear process. It's a bit up and down and sideways and roller coaster like, and the results of that, you don't necessarily see them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but then you do see some results. And at a conference last week, I had someone say to me, "Oh, you've clearly had at a sizable aged care provider say, you've clearly got the ear and the awareness of us and people in the industry, because I've heard multiple people in my team asking about the product." So like those sorts of comments, whilst, that's a comment, it's not a signed contract, but it's still really important to recognize that progression, because that progression really is that awareness building, that each of those little things that have been done along the way by myself, by the team, whether it be things on LinkedIn, things at conferences, articles in the press, just people meeting me, knowing me, the experience of working with AWS, all the different things that improve the awareness and the trustability of the product are really valuable and really help it to progress. But you can only see those looking backwards.
Well, it's not been a decade, it's only been a few years. So you've done incredibly well to have those evidence points so soon. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and just so much valuable advice in there around the awareness that you've got around transferable skills, what you needed to lean into, the importance of other people, etc. So it's been a really interesting conversation. I'm really looking forward to sharing it. I'm wondering how people can find out more about Brenna, and also maybe you and your work in advocating for aged care as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, Jeannie-Marie Noyce. You can also email me at jeannie-marie@brenna.com.au, and our website is brenna.com.au. So you can see there what the product looks like. Brenna is spelled Brenna. And there's a lovely little story that I'll finish with, if that's okay. And people say, why did you call it Brenna? So there's two main reasons for that. The first is that I wanted it to be a woman's name, so something feminine sounding. So instead of saying, oh, have you checked the clinical updates app, or something that, sounds a bit nondescript, it's like, have you checked the update in Brenna today? So that people feel like they're talking about a friend, about something that's more personal. And the other aspect is that given my mum's journey in care, and that being such a challenging journey, a beautiful product coming out of it, I wanted it to be related to my family. And my mum's maiden name is Brennan. So I feel that it's really got that feeling of my family and my mum's legacy coming through in the product.
Wow, well done. I mean, that's it's really nice to hear the meaning behind that. A huge well done around the product, and we wish you all of the best. I just think this is going to go global. So also, if anyone's got someone in aged care and they'd like to improve communications, do share Brenna with the staff at your aged care home.
We would love that. And we've started to have that happen a little more frequently, that people are reaching out and saying, oh, I'd love to have this in my father's aged care home. You know, how do I get you to talk to them? Which is really great. And we absolutely would love more and more people to be doing that. So, and just as a point though, I don't want to glorify the journey. I mean, there's been, certainly it's been hard. It's been very hard throughout the various different points. But the mission is so strong. And I also just feel that life is helping me along the way. This isn't just me or my business. I just happen to be the conduit that's bringing it to life. And I think that there's just so much help and support. So that's what helps get through any of those challenging times as a founder, when you think, really, is this product going to get traction? You know, are we going to be able to achieve what we want to achieve with it? And keeping that passion and faith and my eyes on the mission, I feel like then the help comes. But
amazing. It's not. Yeah. No, you haven't glorified. I think it's a really good balance. I think it's really helpful for people to know that if they've got an idea, start talking to people. You actually will not be on your own, not least because if it's mission and purpose driven. So thanks again. And yeah, we wish you all the very best, and for you and the future of Brenna. And hopefully you get a nice big long holiday in soon.
Thank you very much. That would be wonderful.
Take care. Thank you.